Welcome to the podcast. I'm Rosa Coelho, your host, lifestyle entrepreneur, health coach, and speaker. I've gone from being in complete overwhelm, burning the candle at both ends, and watching my health, relationships, and business suffer, to creating a life with more joy, ease, and abundance. If you're ready to let go of the overwhelm, reclaim your health, and push past your comfort zone so that you can unleash your next level of success to create a greater impact, then sit back as we delve into conversations as well as bring on guests to share with you tools, knowledge, and real action steps to get you there. Listen in, because you never know when you may hear something that changes everything. Hello, beautiful friend. Okay, today's topic is a good one. This is a solo episode. We've had some really lovely interviews lately, but I do love these episodes where I get to come and just chat with you. Usually I'm sharing something that has impacted me. Before I get into the episode, I want to talk a little bit about Simply Strong. Simply Strong is now closed for the summer because I always take off the entire month of August. And as Simply Strong is a 6-week program course, I needed to stop at 6 weeks before I go away, and it will reopen again in September. Second week of September. So if you'd like to be added to the waitlist, simply send me a message on Instagram at RoccoFit, ROCOFIT, and just let me know waitlist, and I will add you to that so that in September you can be one of the first to know when it is ready to go. Okay, so today we're talking about people pleasing, and is people pleasing holding you back from achieving your goals? As a former people pleaser, I'm going to say it absolutely can. It may be, and for me, it definitely was. So when we think of people pleasing, we think about helping people a lot and just dropping everything to, like, dropping all of our stuff in order to help someone else. And I wanted to just be really clear that I believe giving and helping is so important and such an important part of human connection and valuing each other and creating trust between each other, and just helping feels good. But there is the side of helping. The people pleasing is more when we are helping and saying yes to things when we in our gut really wanted to say no. That is not healthy giving, and it's usually that gut feeling that tells us, or we say yes and then we're complaining about it, or we're just resentful. We can feel it in our body. We're helping, but we're just like doing it and we're really short, or we can just feel that tension. And so I'm sure that we've all been there at some point or another, and it just doesn't feel good. And the reason it holds us back is because often I find the hardest thing, and this was the hardest thing for me for years, and I see it in my clients, is you'll have like this perfect schedule of when you're going to work out, when you're going to meal prep, whatever it is, whether, I'm going to go to bed on time, I'm going to wake up early and do whatever. And then something comes up and it's the first thing to go. We just look at it as flexible time. We're like, okay, I'm going to go help that person. For me, it was actually not even didn't always come in the form of helping. Sometimes it came in this pride of being spontaneous. And so people would be like, oh, Rosa, let's go for a coffee. I'm in your neighborhood. Like, oh yeah, that would be great. I was about to go to work for a workout, but I don't want to say no. I want to say yes. I'm going to go, or at least, but I always had that pang of guilt, shoot. And that little pang of guilt is truly self-abandonment. And that's how I finally really see it so clearly, is that I was saying yes to someone else and no to myself. And that yes should never come in the form of no to us. And look, there are emergency situations. There are this. None of this is ever about being perfect. We don't need to be perfect 100% of the time. There are times in life and situations where, yes, something we had planned for ourselves is not going to be the priority. Like if I have a family member that is suddenly sick and needs me to drive them to emergency, you better believe I am dropping everything and I am going. But if we're really clear and we are really honest with ourselves, those true situations of when we need to say yes to something else and not something that we had planned are very few and far between. And yet we treat every situation, we can treat every situation as it's like so important. So we know we're people pleasing, like I said, when we say yes and we really want to say no. Also, why do we do this? It could be for a number of reasons. It could be that we are worried what other people think. We don't want people to think poorly of us, and maybe that we get validation from that. For me, I realized a big part of it was I just desperately needed connection with people. And so I would say yes to these outings all the time and pride myself on being spontaneous, but it wasn't about being spontaneous. It was about desiring that connection that I was missing, and I was clearly missing it within myself. And so, you know, what can we do? And also, what is the harm in that? Well, the harm in that is that we never get consistent. Like we're not able to get results because something's always coming up. And we know to get results, we need to be uber consistent. We don't need to be perfect, but we do need to be very consistent, doing the same things over and over. And it's important because when we do that, when we take these actions and we're doing the steps that we need to over and over, it builds trust, and it builds trust within ourselves. And I think that's incredible. And when we self-abandon, it is this idea of like death by paper cut. Like, and by that, I mean, it's like you don't notice the first time that you said no to yourself and said yes to someone else. You don't notice the second time or the third time or the fourth time. But somewhere along the way, you lose your way and you lose your self-confidence in yourself and you lose your self-esteem. And you start to become someone that you're not. You can't trust yourself. The same is true, like how do you rebuild that? How do you build self-confidence? Well, that's how you do it, is one little step at a time. The saying yes to yourself over and over, sticking to the calendar, but also in learning how to say no. How to say no to other things. And that's how we build our self-confidence. I've really been reflecting a lot on this, even with other people. Like I think in my life, who do I trust? Like not who am I friends with? Who do I like? Who do I trust with some things, right? There's people that we trust with some things, but we're like, oh, I wouldn't trust them with that though. But I trust them with this. And so that's enough for perhaps a friendship, or at least an acquaintance, or a more like not a deep, deep connection, but like, we all need a variety of connections in our lives. It's like, that friend that you're like, oh yeah, I love that friend so much, but I would never live with them and I would never travel with them, but I love them in my everyday life. And I sat and reflected on that and I thought, who do I trust 100%, literally, that they would have my back, they would be there? And it was amazing. It wasn't people that I would even say I'm super close to. It's not necessarily people that I've known all my life. The very few examples I had one thing in common. This blew my mind, actually. This is something that I've just recently discovered. Those people that I completely trust is because they have clear boundaries. They're boundaried with themselves. They don't self-abandon. And that's why I trust them. And I thought, wow, isn't that fascinating? The people I trust are the people that actually say yes to themselves, and they have clear boundaries and they stick to them regardless of what other people think of them, feel about them. And they're good people. They help others. Like they just have rich relationships. Yet they don't often have a lot of deep friendships if you ask them. They have a few. Lots of acquaintances and all the things, but a few that they really trust as well. And I just found that so fascinating. I was like, wow. So if I want others to trust me, which I would love, I think we all love that people trust us, then I need to first build that within myself. I first have to have the self-confidence, but not just say it, not just say that I'm worthy, not just say that I have the self-confidence, but actually have the data that backs it up. Like that time after time doing what I say I'm going to do for myself, not for other people. Like, yes, of course, that will spill into other people. Like, I'm very good that way, but I've always been pretty good that way. If I say I'm going to do something, I do it with others, but I wasn't doing it with myself. And so there's a disconnect there. It's like, why can I do this for other people? Why can we do this for our like bosses? We'll do whatever they want and do the hard things, but then for ourselves, we don't. So this has been like a bit of a mind-blowing thought process for me. So I'm going to help with like a few things that I feel can really help to start to get there, because this is the key. Like if you're doing a program, whether you're doing my program, someone else's program, or whatever it is, and you're like, okay, I know exactly what to do, but I'm still not doing it. Why am I not doing it? And we beat ourselves up and we ask all the questions and the why, but this is still coming from a victim mindset. Because it's like, oh, is there something wrong with the program? Is there something wrong with me? And we're in this like blame game or this blame and shame and guilt. And like, that's not going to help. But if we're not doing the things that we know we're supposed to do, then we need to ask ourselves the deeper questions. And we also need to start to prove to ourselves with action that we can do it. So number one, I would say the number one step is get very clear on your goals and why they are important to you. Like, why is it important to you to lose that extra weight? Is it because you know how you feel, you want to feel good, you want to live long, you want to have longevity, you want to be able to travel well, you want to be able to hike, you want to be able to sit in a kayak, you want to be there for your family, for your kids, you whatever it is, like everyone can have their own reason for truly wanting to do something. But get very clear on why. Why is it important to you? Because there are going to be days that are going to shake you, and you need to know the why, because it's that why and that vision in your mind that will get you through. That's part one. The vision isn't enough. Part two is the action. The action is the only thing that will build that. It's not just the thought process. So that was actually part two. Part two is practice upholding your boundaries. So if you know there are particular scenarios that are hard for you, like for me, it was the spontaneous thing. The last minute, someone calls and let's go for a coffee, or come do this with me, or come do that, and I've got tickets for this. Come join me. And I'd be like, yeah, oh my gosh, that's so amazing. And I'm worried that that might not come up. Like I have FOMO, fear of missing out. And so I practiced that, like, until it became easy. I practiced that. Like, if I knew, okay, these are my workout days and times, these are the only times that I can do it at, then I would practice, like, okay, if this person calls, no matter what it is, I'm going to say this. Like, these are the words I'm going to use. And it wasn't for them, it was for me. Because when you practice the actual language and the words out loud, it becomes easier to say it in the moment, because you're really working at changing a pattern. And in order to change a pattern, that's hard work. You need the words. You need to practice it. You need to visualize it and go through the scenario. Think of like actors, right? The amount of times that they do those lines, they visualize the scene in their minds. Like that's what we need to do in order to, it's like playing a new role for your character, because your personal character isn't used to this. And so practice those scenarios and practice upholding those boundaries. And also, if you're finding that you're like certain times that you're planning things and it's not working, then look at your schedule and be like, okay, I never, ever, ever, for whatever reason, I cannot work out right after work. It just has never happened no matter what. Then you need to look at it and go, okay, fine. Maybe that's the problem. It's the time, and you put it at a different time. So be very practical too. Sometimes it's not as big of a thing or as deep as of an emotional thing as we think, right? Sometimes it's just a practicality. It's like, okay, you know what? I need to get up at half an hour earlier and get this done, because that's when it's going to work for me. Okay. That one was just like a little bonus. Number 3 is following through and tracking with evidence. Like I'm a big believer of tracking when you're laying down new habits. And by tracking, I don't just mean like on your phone. Get a physical calendar, and whatever it is, the goal that you're struggling with, whether it's, getting your 10,000 steps in a day, whether it's getting your 100 grams of protein in, whether it is the workout, whether it's meal prep, whatever it is, mark it down on a calendar, a physical calendar that you can see, put it somewhere like your kitchen, a room where you are all the time, and color code it. If like when you meal prep, give yourself a yellow smiley. When you get your workout in, give yourself a blue smiley. It doesn't matter. It needs to work for you, but it needs to be visible so that at the end of the month, you can see at a glance whether you upheld your promises or not. And then next month, you're going to reflect and you're going to improve on that. Because again, it's not about perfection. And when we're changing into a new habit, it's going to take a little bit of time. So give yourself grace, but also hold yourself accountable. And this is a bonus one. The bonus one is this. Feelings pass. Just sit with them. If you're learning to say no to other people, family members, friends, whatever, and you say no, please be ready to feel that uncomfortable feeling, whether for you it presents itself as anxiety. It might be like just like an overwhelming guilt, this sensation of like abandonment because you want people to like you, whatever it is. It could be like this myriad of like really icky feelings. Like I would expect that. Wait for it, breathe through it, and say to yourself, this will pass. I don't need to believe my feelings. So often we're interpreting and making up what other people are thinking, and they're not even thinking of it. They're off onto the next thing. It wasn't a big deal for them. And yet here we are like in this state of suffering. So expect it, breathe through it. And sometimes when we're in these icky feelings, know that change your physiology. Tony Robbins says that, change your physiology, change your state. So what that means is like, get up and walk, go for a little walk, move your body, and you'll find that those feelings will pass through a lot quicker as well. So friends, I hope that that's really helped you. I know for me, this is a work in progress. I am so much better in it, and it feels so good. Like I can't even express how recognizing this is changing different areas in my life for the better. Like I'm learning to trust myself, and I can see how others interact with me also is changing in a beautiful way. It's not always comfortable, but it's incredible. So anyway, if anything has resonated with you in this episode, please let me know. I love hearing from you, but also more than hearing from you, because I do get these beautiful messages from you and I so appreciate them. But it would also matter so much to me and mean a lot if you could share it on Instagram and social media and share this podcast and those thoughts with others. And if you could just take a little screenshot of the episode and share it and tag me in it at RoccoFit, that would mean a lot. Know that I love your messages. I value them so much. So send me those too, but it does mean a lot when you share them publicly. It helps to share the podcast. All right, my friend, have a beautiful, beautiful week. You've got a few more episodes coming before I take the month of August off. I will be in Europe again this summer and just shutting off a little bit from work and enjoying just a different routine. All right.
Thank you so much for listening in today. I know time is precious, and I'm grateful you shared yours with me. It would mean the world to me if you felt an impact, a moment of inspiration, or learned something new. If you would share it with those you care about and leave me a review on iTunes. I'd love to know what spoke to you or what you'd like to hear more of. Your sharing and leaving a review would help so much on this journey to making an impact on as many people as possible. It's worth it. I know from experience, there are moments when something we hear has the possibility of changing everything.